A maths professor at the University of Oxford that uses maths to research cancer. Oh, and he's won FPL in 2019-20 as well. Welcome to the show, ladies and gents. Joshua Bull. He's locked on Salah. He's got Marmoush and Gvardiol on his team. It's a proper interesting one. Don't go anywhere. We're exclusively revealing his team ahead of that Game Week 1 deadline. Josh, welcome to the channel. Thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to touch base. We spoke a couple of weeks ago when it was like, yeah, it was initial reaction last time, wasn't it? It was almost like, here's my first draft, and it was very top line. But as, of course, the days and weeks go on, we draft more and more. And now we get into a team that looks like close to what will be, I guess, a final team. Just tell me a little bit about your day job before we start, because this is so interesting, because everyone's heard of University of Oxford, like world renowned. You use maths to research cancer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. No, I can talk about it all day. So you might, it can hijack your stream. It'd be great. But it's basically, I'm trained as a mathematician, so that's my background. I sort of wanted to feel like I was doing something useful in the real world. So I was kind of looking for applications of maths, and I've ended up working in cancer. So I work for Cancer Research UK. Really, they fund most of my research. And it's all about using kind of, I guess I'd describe it as mathematical methods for doing data analysis on spatial data in particular, which is less useful when it comes to sort of, transferring it over to FPL, but it's the same kind of principles, I guess. So I spent most of my time trying to come up with new algorithms, I guess, as a way of thinking about it, which can help us get more information from images of kind of cancer data.
Wow, I mean, when you hear that and you're like, and you've won FPL, straight away you think, complete, data-driven, reading data, analytics style game. I know there's more to that than your game, but when you look at like data from last season at players like Mo Salah versus Haaland, that must come into it for you. Like where do you spot trends and themes where it may or may not continue? And Salah obviously flew last year, Haaland didn't. We'll see your draft in a minute, but let's give one spoiler alert away. Are you going Haaland, Salah, neither or both?
I'm going Salah. Salah, no Haaland.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. For me, I mean, it almost didn't require any thinking about, which probably is a sign that I've made the wrong choice. But for me, it's a combination of, it's just so good, Salah, in this game. And I've also got a lot of, obviously in the season that I won it, I owned him a lot, captained him a lot. And so I sort of have a soft spot for him, I think. So when it's choosing between him and Haaland, it's always going to be Salah for me.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm the same. I'm locked on Salah. I'd love Haaland too, but something's got to give. And I feel like the teams that have both, there's perhaps a little bit too much compromise. If you do get both in your team, that's 25% of your budget gone. More.
Yeah, I mean, you can't own everyone. And I'm sure Haaland will score many, many points. But you have to choose one or the other. I do think in general, midfielders are more powerful at this game than forwards are, just in terms of fantasy football points. They've obviously got a couple more routes to getting the points. And I think that does help over the course of the season. And I'm planning to own Salah for the whole season unless he gets injured or, something really unforeseen happens. He's sort of just a lock-in.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, look, let's get to the rest of your team. We know one. Let's see the other 14. Guys, before we do, if you want to hit that like button nice and early, but also please do subscribe to the channel if you're going to do one thing today. And of course, we'll respond to all comments in the chat. Give Josh some love in the comments. Let's start with your goalkeepers. You said last time, a cheap set and forget is your route. The save points are important to you. Kelleher, Brentford goalkeepers, if we go off last year with Flecken, they attract a lot of save points and often from quite low XG chances. Under Thomas Frank, it was a lot of shots from distance, which were great for keepers. Are you hoping Brentford are the same? Because it is going into the unknown with Kelleher because there's a new manager at Brentford.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, goalkeeper is probably the position I think about the least. I basically go for who's the 4 million who looks like they're going to play most and who's the 4.5 who I'm sort of backing. I tend to think in general Brentford do have good recruitment, which means if they're playing someone as their goalie, they're probably statistically quite good. That's a very kind of appeal to authority way of thinking about this. I've not looked at the stats. I've not compared them. It's obviously a great thing to be going into the season with 2 flagged goalkeepers. Might be, depending on how serious either of those look, I might shuffle them around. But if they're both yellow flagged, they're both not looking too bad, then I might just gamble it.
Yeah, I think Kelleher's very likely to be a starter. I mean, we'll know more after the press conference, but I think that flag will probably come off on Friday. So yeah, I think that's fine on Kelleher. Dubravka maybe not, but again, he's going to be your bench keeper for game week 1 anyway. Okay, well, let's talk defenders, because you've got 3 6 million defenders in your team this year. Like you're going quite big at the back, and actually you're not. I mean, none of the 6 million guys are the defensive contribution beasts, because they play for the middling teams or the lower ranked teams. The premium defenders that are centre backs, yes, Gabriel, Van Dijk, you get goal threat, you get clean sheets, whatever. But actually, there's some fullbacks that have clearly caught your eye. Which 3 of these have you got, and why?
Yeah, I do think I think defensive contributions might end up being a bit of a trap. Obviously they might be great. We just don't really know until we see it. But I think you get a maximum of 2 points a week, right? And the players who are likely to be stronger for those things, I think, are the ones who are less likely to get the attacking returns, which obviously are more uncapped. So I think there's more routes for the fullbacks to be getting bigger hauls, rather than what's more likely to be more consistent. And obviously the fullbacks can get those defensive contribution points too. So, to my mind, there just seem to be more avenues going big at the back. So with that said, at the moment, I've got Cucurella, I've got Frimpong, and I've got Vardiol there. I think all 3 of them look like they could be big attacking beasts. Obviously, with Vardiol, there's always that kind of pet roulette aspect. If he ends up playing centre back for the whole season and never going forwards across the halfway line, then probably he'll be the first one out. But I think all of them have got great upside, and certainly Vardiol and Cucurella have got sort of good FPL pedigree as well.
Yeah, I love that. You're covering 3 of the best defences in the league. Like if we rank the best 4 from last year, it's Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, City. So yes, there's no Arsenal defender, but you've got the best option from City alongside Aït-Nouri, the best option from Chelsea, Standout, and the best option from Liverpool alongside Van Dijk. So yeah, I like that. And then Arsenal, when the fixtures turn, you can easily jump on one of them around game week 7 or 8, whenever that is. So yeah, okay, I like that shape. And then 4.5 and 4, that's your fodder for the bench mainly, and it will be a back 3 most weeks, I expect. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, possibly starting De Cuyper as well. I like to have basically no money on the bench. Well, when I say basically no money, I like to have no money on the bench, so the sort of cheapest possible. And I think in general, that extra 500,000 or so tends to be better put into getting more premium players, rather than trying to take a gamble with having several players that you're sort of rotating. So yeah, I'm not averse to starting a 4.5 million defender, even a 4 million defender, if I feel like that 500,000 will be better up front somewhere. And there's a 4 million who I think will start enough.
I like that. When we spoke before, you said about a really thin bench, and especially because you're not preparing for a bench boost, it makes complete sense. I actually was inspired by our chat that I thought, yeah, I need to be careful with money on the bench. I don't mind having one bench option that's a little bit more than the budget, the basement budget price, but definitely not more than one. And your draft, again, it's a common theme. We'll have likely 3 on the bench, so that works. All the money into your 11. Let's talk about your midfield next up, I guess. I mean, your midfield is, of course, fairly stacked, and then it's high price and low price. We talk about that a lot. Before we do, just wanted to give a shout out to OneFootball, who sponsored the channel. If you're not already on OneFootball, check out the app, guys. You'll love it. It's the best football resource for me. I use Scout for my FPL. I use OneFootball for my football video clips, press conference news, all of that jazz. I'll leave the QR code on screen. That midfield. Straight away, the name I'm most intrigued about, actually, it's probably the first 2, the 2 M's, because I've looked at both of these in my team, and my very first draft was Marmoush in. I'm going for a no Haaland draft. I need the next best thing. Marmoush effectively plays as a forward or a second striker. He's listed now as a midfielder. 8.5 is a good price point. He started 14 of the 16 since he joined in the Premier League. Good output from last year. Overperforms as expected. How do you feel about Marmoush? Because I don't see him in many teams, but I think he's such a good option.
Yeah, it's funny. I think when the game first came out, he was everywhere. Basically, everyone had him on Marmoush draft. And to some extent, me having him in possibly just reflects me being less engaged than a lot of people in the sort of online FPL world. That said, I do think he's at a price point that I really like, in that sort of 8.5. It's between him and Verts. It could end up going either way. But I think having a route into the City attack is always a good thing. If I'm going without Haaland, it's great to have someone. Like you say, his numbers last season were looking great. So the big question mark for me really is just, is he going to start? If he's going to be getting, sort of 60 minutes plus regularly, then I think it's great to have someone at that sort of level from Man City who's coming in there. And he's got, as you say, the potential to really pop off. Could be great fun.
Yeah, okay. I like that. I'm in full agreement. What about Minter? Because this could be his breakthrough year. Like, he was good last year, his first year at Brighton, but he's adapting to the Premier League. There was a lot of competition for places. He was first choice, but now it looks even more so that Brighton are relying on him as a sort of output machine on that right-hand side, and he looks like he's their standout attacker. Yeah,
so he's in here, if I'm being honest, purely as a stats pick. That sort of slot of like the cheap playing midfielder. I say cheap, obviously it's not bargain basement, but Trezeguet's in here to sit on the bench. How much money do I have left? I will get the best looking player at that price point that I can find. So in terms of then the sort of 6 million mids, Minter I know almost nothing about, other than he seems to be topping the sort of predicted points, the X points in various different models, and I'm willing to go with that. I'm part of the reason I like to use stats, other than being a mathematician, is that I don't really trust my own judgment when it comes to assessing footballers. I'm very much not an eye test person, because at the end of the day, I don't really know an awful lot about football. So I think when the models are all kind of predicting that he's going to be high scoring in that place, I think, great, let's get him in.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And look, there's so many different ways to play FPL. Some are complete football addicts that watch every game and have never looked at any data. Some are complete data driven, maybe just watch the highlights like you, and some are halfway between. And there's no right and wrong. And actually, when you look at the last few winners of FPL, and I include you in this, but also I think the last 2 years, all three of you have been very heavily analytics. 3 years ago, Ali won, who's very much the other way. Ali doesn't look at any data and goes purely off gut instinct whilst watching games. So it just goes to show, like, there's no right and wrong there, which is so interesting. And I love, therefore, your take even more so, because I think it gives this channel lots of balance. Palmer, Salah, I don't think we need to discuss too much. Like, they feel so obvious. And then a 4.5, again, it's the common theme. You've got the 4 million defender, you've got the 4.5 midfielder there. So again, we're seeing who's on your bench. It's fodder, it's getting money in the 11. I want to talk to you about loose sort of strategy moving forward and captaincy this week. But before we do, let's see that front line, because again, the front line, it's pretty well covered. It's the bargain basement again, the 4.5 option that won't get many minutes. But then you've gone 9 million and 7.5. And these are the two that I've got in my team. And they feel, again, 9 million Watkins allows you to move to Gyökeres if you need to. If worst case scenario, you do need to get to Haaland, you've at least got a semi-cash cow in Watkins. But first, let's kick off with João Pedro. Are you concerned from an analytics point of view that he's not a 90-minute man, that he will get some early subs? Could that affect him in your team?
I think I worry about minutes a lot less than a lot of the analytics people do. But I think that's mainly just because I think, especially for strikers, if they're playing with real intensity and really leading the line and really trying to give 100%, they're not going to be players who are playing 90 minutes necessarily. You see it even with players like Haaland, will very often play sort of 60 minutes of a match and then get subbed off. And it's not that they're bad picks or bad players. It's just an intensity thing, I guess. So I'm not too fussed about if they look like they're going to get less than 60 minutes. I'm not happy, but 60 plus from a striker, I'm sort of happy with that. So I'm not too worried about that. My biggest worry with João Pedro would be whether he will nail down those 60 minutes.
Yeah.
I would love it. It's especially as an Ipswich fan, I'd love it if Delap comes good and starts absolutely smashing it. From an FPL point of view, that would free up an extra million and sort of further forward. And I think he's got the capability to do it. But it looks like at the minute, João Pedro is going to be the one who's sort of leading the line for Chelsea. So yeah, I'm sure he will rotate. I'm sure he won't be getting 90 minutes every week. But in terms of who's around that price point of a sort of let's say 6 to 7.5 million forward, I sort of like him better than the rest at the minute.
Yeah, okay. I think the João Pedro minutes, you're right. Like he as long as he's getting 60 plus, it's fine. And I think he will. He's had 5 games so far, but this was his debut. This is pre-season, and his minutes have been on average 50 minutes a game. But in that time, he has scored 5 goals. So 5 goals in 250. He is averaging a goal every appearance. He's averaging a goal every 50 minutes. Now, that's clearly not sustainable. But even if he averages 1 goal every 100 minutes, you'd be happy at 7.5 million. So when strikers are hot, I just think you got to back them. And at the moment, there isn't a striker hotter out there in FPL, given the fact he scored 3 in the Club World Cup and then pre-season friendlies. Chelsea only had 2 on successive days, Saturday, Sunday at the weekend. He played 61 versus Milan, 26 versus Leverkusen. He played 90 over the weekend and he scored in both. Every touch is just going in. So I like that for João Pedro. And it was off the back of seeing him over those 2 friendlies. And I just thought, I've been flirting with the idea. It's time just to lock him in. Ollie Watkins is also scoring pre-season. Go on. Sorry, on João Pedro. Carry on.
No, I was just going to say, like, in terms of reading too much into pre-season and things, like, yes, he can score against sort of AC Milan and PSG and things. But you have to remember that he's not going to be playing them, in the actual season. He's got to go to the likes of Fulham and Crystal Palace. And, can he do it there?
Yeah, good point. And then again,
a lot of sarcasm in there, by the way.
Yeah, no, I hear you. The pressure's on.
You may not have picked it up.
The pressure's on though in the Premier League, isn't it? It's like pre-season when it doesn't really matter. You can play on them and express yourself. You can just play with a bit more freedom, and you might make different choices. As soon as it's Premier League football and the games are tighter and more compact, and the defenses are deep blocks, it does make a difference. Let's go on to Ollie Watkins though, because I love this pick. And again, I'm seeing a lot of managers favouring perhaps say a Bruno Fernandes or a higher priced midfielder, and then going with 2 cheaper forwards. You've shoehorned in a 9 million forward here. And I like Watkins as a pick because the Villa fixtures are so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said before, I think a lot about price points when I'm sort of putting the team together. I do think having the ability to jump to, if there's the like of an Isak suddenly starts taking off, or Gyökeres or something like that, you want the ability to be able to get to them without tearing up your whole team. I sort of excluded Haaland from that because, yes, he could well go and bang in a hat-trick in the first couple of weeks, but I'm probably not going to tear my team up in order to get him in. That's sort of a decision that I've made already. I think with Watkins, it's funny, he leaps out to me as the most reliable, the most tried and tested of the sort of 9 million-ish mids forwards. But at the same time, I'm not that sold. And I don't know what it is. It's a position where I kind of keep looking at the shiny new things and saying, oh, there's lots of, players new to the league around that price point. Should I be going for one of them? But I think it's good to start with someone who I can easily downgrade if I need that money further back down the field as well. And a lot of those kind of shiny new picks who are coming in are that tiny bit cheaper than him, which is always easier to make that move than if I start with one of them and then suddenly at Watkins, it looks like he's having the season of his life or something like that.
Yeah, someone like a Sesko is an attractive option at 7.5 million, but it's like, no, tried and tested Watkins, then you can easily jump. I mean, Scout have ordered this by difficulty. They've got Villa at the top of the ticker. Newcastle, Brentford, Palace, Everton, Sunderland. It's a good run of 5 games. So I hear you there, mate. Talk to me about captaincy, because when we look at your team, and to win FPL, you've got to get captaincy right. And the year you won it, Salah obviously was your captain a lot. You've got Palmer as an option, you've got Watkins as an option, should you need. But I guess predominantly, have you looked ahead at the first few weeks and gone, it will be Salah? I mean, what about when he plays Newcastle game week 2 and Arsenal game week 3? Is this wait and see what happens in game week 1 first? Or do you think you would go to a Watkins or a Palmer, like Palmer goes to West Ham game week 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot gets said about captaincy, where really I think we worry too much about it if we're sort of trying to plan it ahead. Yes, if every player in your team has a horrendous fixture, then that's not looking good. But in which case, you probably shouldn't have that team set up quite like that anyway. Yes, Salah can haul every week, but for me, I don't mind captaining sort of rogue people. And the year that I won, I definitely had some. Like I remember, Cancelo was a captain choice for me quite a few times.
Wow.
Where I just had a feeling that he would be scoring, he'd be getting those points. I'm not averse to sort of going away from that. I don't mind captaining. Just looking at this, it's the people with high potential ceilings. So even people like Marmoush, I wouldn't mind, or if you're feeling really rogue, like the likes of Cucurella and Palmer, like I'm not against putting the captaincy out there. So on a week-to-week basis, if I'm feeling like Salah is looking sort of particularly like he's having a bad week, he's got a horrible fixture coming up that I just don't think is likely, but I've got some other player who happens to have a home match against Sunderland, say, I could well be tempted onto them, even if they're a less kind of shiny-looking premium pick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice. I like that, and it's brave to go for that attractive fullback. But if he hits and the big names don't that weekend, then you're absolutely quids in. Okay. Reviewing then this team you put together, give me a couple of players that you're really unsure about. You mentioned Watkins. You keep flirting with the idea of new toys, but this is the team you'll probably go with the vast majority of this. Any other positions where you're like, or big names where you're kind of swaying?
Yeah, so I would say to people, I'm definitely not locked in on this. Like pretty much anyone in this team, apart from maybe Salah or Palmer, might change. But I think the bits where I'm most likely to sort of tinker around with it, I've sort of said Marmoush first. I could be tempted onto him. And Minte, I think, is then the most likely from that midfield to change in terms of, say I end up rejigging so that I'm not starting Watkins, but I'm kind of having one of those slightly cheaper players, then that money might well go into Minte. Equally, if I'm doing something like trying to bring in, so we've not talked about Ekitike or Verts at all, but like say I wanted to have both of them instead of Marmoush and Watkins, which is a possibility that I've sort of flirted with. Then obviously I'm changing Frimpong into could well be someone like Pedro Porro, who again has that attacking potential, but is that slight bit cheaper. So yeah. I don't think the price points will change a huge amount, but there might be a tiny bit of, if I can free up 500,000 from the defence, maybe that goes into the midfield. And you can see a situation there where if you're freeing up 500,000 from Frimpong and Watkins, that's suddenly you're going from a 6 million Minte to a 7 million midfielder. So there's a lot of kind of potential tinkering that I might end up doing. But this has been kind of fairly static for the last few days at least. So hopefully we're not too far off what it'll end up looking like here.
That's when when you've gone 24 in the final week, when you've gone 24 hours without making a change, or like you've logged in and not made a change. That's when you go, oh, I'm getting close now. So I love to hear that, mate. The best of luck for Game Week 1 and for the season. I look forward to checking in with you at some point throughout the season. But really appreciate your time. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for enjoying all our preseason content. Josh, any final words from you?
No, have fun, everyone. Remember, it's a game. You don't have to win it to enjoy it.